Okay. Good evening, everybody. 6:58 p.m. on the East Coast. It is 8:57, 6:57, 6:58, and 7 o'clock and 53 seconds over there. It's September 11th, 2024. Welcome to the show. And we were together for a long time last night. Many of you, not all of you, but many of you. If you want to watch the debate, the actual debate rerun, which I don't know why you would. It's not like a show. You're just sitting around watching it with us. But I left that up on quitefrankly.tv in the reruns section on pilled.net. So it's all right there. That's the only place. I privatized it on Rumble. I deleted it on Twitter because it's just one of those things where, I don't know. I don't consider it a broadcast. That's a stream. That was a stream. I like broadcasting. Anyway, tonight we're getting together. I have a lot I want to talk about in the first half hour, which is why we're going to skip the grab bag. And we've got Matt Christiansen coming on around 7:30, 7:35. He'll be with us for the last 20 minutes or so of the first hour. I want to see what he thinks about last night, and I also want to see what the update on his Russian duping is. I want to see. Well, who is he called again? Is he commentator number 6? I gotta see. I'll ask him. Anyway, that'll be nice. I also hope I can get some of your calls in, so I want to move through my thoughts speedily. There's so many things to say, though. We'll see. In the second half, I've got Jeremy Reese on with us around 8:15. We're going to spend about 20 to 30 minutes together. And Jeremy, he was on with us once. He's an old acquaintance of mine. And we reconnected over the spring, and he came on to talk about UFO technology, anti-gravitic technology, dark projects, all that kind of stuff. Well, today I know that another very big topic of his concentration over the years has been the events of September 11th, 2001. So I want to talk about distrusting the science behind the official stories of September 11th, 2001, and we're going to be able to do a little bit of a top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever he's got. I'll ask him, hey, where do you want to start? And that will be Jeremy Reese on with us. Another little thing for you is after the show concludes at 9 o'clock, around 9:05 or so, Rabbit Hole Wednesday will be starting up again on quitefrankly.tv. So no matter where you're watching at 7 o'clock, go to quitefrankly.tv and press play, because we have a James Corbett 9/11 marathon that's going on tonight. It's going to start off with 9/11 War Games. That's an hour long. Then there's 9/11 Trillions. That's another hour long. And then if it leaves off with, I think, is one of the craziest compilations that he's done of interviews, and that is 9/11 Whistleblowers, which is 2 hours long. So plenty of stuff on quitefrankly.tv afterwards. James Corbett has done some of the best work on the subject, and that all kicks off as soon as this show ends. So let's get started. Oh, and one more thing. When you're on quitefrankly.tv, you might be there right now. Go to the forum. Pinned to the top of the forum, there's a couple of newsletter threads. There's a Halloween costume contest thread there, too. The October edition of the newsletter, we love to make it very, very audience-centered. We love your submissions. And for the October one, we want to be able to just do a Halloween costume contest. Just, throughout the years, nostalgic things that you've done, the best contest you ever done, whatever that is, or the best costumes, contest or no, please. I can see that being an amazing thing. I'll keep plugging it, but get into that forum and drop in your costume contest, because then we'll do I think that, what is it? Is Halloween a Thursday this year? Anyway, we'll have a special Halloween stream one way or another, and we'll announce who wins the costume contest. Get in there. It's so good. Be a part of it. Don't just lurk. Do some things. Come on. I'm trying to pull you onto the dance floor here. Get in on that forum thread, and we'll be back right after this. Don't go nowhere.
Really went downhill after the World Trade Center. Quasimodo predicted all this.
Who did what?
All these problems, the Middle East, the end of the world.
Nostradamus. Quasimodo's the hunchback of Notre Dame.
All right. Nostradamus.
Nostradamus and Notre Dame. It's two different things completely.
It's interesting, though, to be so similar, isn't it? And I always thought, okay, hunchback of Notre Dame. You also got your quarterback and your halfback of Notre Dame.
One's a fucking cathedral.
Obviously, I know. I'm just saying. It's interesting, the coincidence. What? You gonna tell me you never pondered that? The back thing with Notre Dame?
No.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's
Argued with myself a little bit. No, okay. You don't need that. Okay, I've made amends with that. You know, things you don't get. Maybe some of you do get it. Who knows? You have a diary? This show is my diary, unfortunately. Some of you keep that locked up in your hope chest, but I don't have one of those. So that's just what I have. Just ABC. Let's just talk about it for a second. What was it last night? ABC set this up so that the optics, on an optics level, it would be a Harris win. And she definitely had the easiest. She was nicely incubated. God knows what other technological advantages she had, aside from the fact that the entire network was behind her and the two doofus moderators were there doing their job. It's just nuts. Every question was about kind of making Trump answer for his seemingly endless record of crimes against humanity. Almost every question. Isn't it amazing? And despite all of that production support, she was a nervous, gulping, cottonmouth harridan. It would have been delightful. Really would have been delightful to see her without the life preserver on. But this is the way of the world. It would have been a delight. I would have been delighted.
Delighted.
So David Mueller, the face of a mule, can rot in hell for that prissy freak. And his little dog, too. Whoever that combative little sidekick was next to him. But, we got everything. As Jay likes to say, man, they're playing the greatest hits tonight. I mean, it was verbatim, like the Ukraine simping. I want the war to end. I want the death to end. Yeah, but do you want Ukraine to win? I mean, they did that to him in that town hall. What was it, last year? 2 years ago? It's incredible. It's incredible how there was actually so little thought put into the questions. The moderators could not have been the ones who wrote the questions. They were written over the last couple of town halls and debates. Everything was just so badly recycled too. They must know that they're just scraping the bottom of the barrel here. Here's a nice observation from Razorfist. Razor says he called the moderators mongerators. Mongerator says January 6th was bad. Why didn't you call in the National Guard? Trump, or T-Rump, said, I tried, but Nancy Pelosi had the power and she refused, which is true. I mean, we have her on tape. We have her on tape saying, I could have done more. I could have. Mongerator, excuse me, the question was about you, not Nancy Pelosi. Next question. Actual exchange. It's true. That was the quality that we were served up last night. Here's one from Chris Hennessy. I don't know who he is, but he just made another good observation. Moderator, you said you lost by an inch. Trump said, yeah, I was being sarcastic. Moderator, David Mueller, said, I watched it. I didn't pick up the sarcasm. Why was he opining on what he perceives as sarcasm or not, because this was the game. This was the game that was being played. I mean, there's so much here, ladies and gents, and there's so much more that you can throw in. We can jog each other's memories all night, but why? But I do have some other thing. Despite all the parlor tricks were deployed. It was a full-on magic show to keep that smirking Harridan afloat. And yeah, I saw the earrings. I saw the earrings, and I saw the earring posts, and I've had so many people in my life bring my attention to it. And to be honest, that would be the bare minimum I'd expect them to do. It wouldn't be shocking to me. So it makes sense. In fact, here's an article that was just released on John Solomon's website, Just the News. Take a listen to this. Company responds to theory that Harris wore audio earrings at the debate. The resemblance is striking, they say. Following the presidential debate on Tuesday, social media users theorized that Vice President Kamala Harris wore audio earrings on stage. Yeah, why? Because she has no recall. She's not 81 years old and has dementia, but she still has no recall. She has no success in front of any camera in much less pressurized environments. The Germany-based company that sells the earrings said on Wednesday that the resemblance between Harris's earrings and their audio earrings is striking. Said, we do not know whether Mrs. Harris wore one of our products. The resemblance is striking, and while our product is not specifically developed for the use at presidential debates, it is nonetheless suited for it. Malte Iverson, managing director at Icebach Sound, told Just the News on Wednesday. So I noticed it, but that would just be like the earring on top of the cherry on top. So, I don't know. With all that being said, now I'm just going to speak uber personally. As a public speaker myself, I had to come home and get into the hottest shower that I could handle without my skin blistering up and sloughing off my body. I needed to scald the residue of the evening off of me as fast as fucking possible. As fast as possible. Now, I got to just be honest about some stuff over here, because if I don't say it, I'll feel very disingenuous. Whoever prepares Donald Trump, because there may not be another debate again, all his debating career might be over. But whoever has prepared, and especially this year, if you didn't need it with Joe Biden, that wasn't a debate either. The guy had a stroke on stage, and Trump just had to shut up, and he won, because the big story was, oh my God, everybody knows that Biden has been dementia riddled for years, and now he's just completely unmanageable. Today he put a MAGA hat on at the request of some, I don't know, some crowd he met at a VFW building somewhere. It's wild. Anyway, whoever prepares Donald Trump for debate should be flogged. Flogged. It's not hyperbole. Is Bill Barr in charge of Trump's debate prep team? I would love to know a little bit more about his practices. He's a great showman on television shows, at rallies, when he's in relaxed one-on-one conversations. His smarts really do come through. His personality comes through. He's a funny guy. His humanity shines through. You can get that in Donald Trump in different settings. You get different things out of him. But in a debate setting, he has a tendency of being an inarticulate bumbler. And if you guys don't see that, I don't know how we don't see that together. All right? Let's put the entire ABC Scam-O-Thon production aside for a second, okay? Despite everything that was going against him last night, those three nitwits that he was up against should have been torn to shreds. Torn to shreds, as they stood on nothing but platitudes, empty appeals to emotion, and tabloid-level stories that even Snopes doesn't defend anymore. She talked about, she even mentioned tiki torches last night. Yeah, went back to Charlottesville. They're good people on both sides. She even brought up the tiki torches. Everything. I don't know. And listen, he had good moments. He had decent moments. Very good comments with the tariffs and everything else. And I mean, when they talk about you left us a mess, I'm always like, Donald, talk about 2019. Talk about 2000. Oh, yes, I understand. In 2020, when the planet Earth was steamrolled, was flattened, and everybody was forced out of their jobs and everything tanked. And oh yeah, I remember that year very, very well. You want to talk about 2019? That would have been great. That would have been fantastic. So listen, I personally, in this situation, and there's nothing that's going to really come of this. It's not going to really shift things one way or another. Everybody's firmly in their place. It was a shit show. You saw what you wanted to see. But, I mean, when I see this, I can't totally exonerate Trump and his team completely for last night. You could say, well, his real supporters know what he really means. Oh, I'm sure. But you can't keep leaning on that crutch that you guys speak his language. Because last night wasn't even about his supporters or growing his support base. These debates are not about anything other than showing up at an adversarial propaganda network and finding a way to starve the subversive media of their sustenance. If you're going to show up at all, you got to starve them of their sustenance and make them go nuts. You got to throw the holy water on them and let them writhe. When the media has a bad night that they cannot polish into something good, they wail like demons for days. The panic is delicious. That's what you're looking for. You know, it's not even you don't even show up to debate your opponent if you're in someone like Donald Trump's shoes. You're not even showing up there to debate the opponent because obviously the opponents are quite disposable. Quite disposable. You think that Joe Biden was a flushable wipe? There's nobody more flushable than this twat. Okay? Excuse me, I'm still please excuse me. For example, though, abortion, and we talked about it last night there too. All they have is this pseudo-feminist emotional barbarism to lean on. Okay, Trump could just easily, with a little bit of coaching, can easily rest his head on the Bill of Rights with abortion. I mean, throughout his life, he's always been moderate on abortion. Through his whole life, Roe versus Wade was about Article 1 and the responsibilities of the government. The federal government has no authority on the issue. Therefore, it's up to the states. And as you can see, and he tried getting around to this, but it didn't really come through, didn't really read that well. As you can see, states all over the nations have started to vote on and create different abortion laws for their respective states. And it goes every which way. He brought up Ohio and Nebraska, which are red states that went pretty liberal with their new abortion legislation. And that's the 10th Amendment. And I know he tried saying that, but it was just coming out a little bit weird. And then, of course, there is well, okay, but will you veto an abortion ban? Yes, is the answer. And then the follow-up is, and I would also veto pro-abortion legislation as well. Why? Because it's a state issue. It would require a constitutional amendment, not a simple majority vote. And then, I mean, that takes less than 25 seconds to set up the entire position. And it's indefensible. They can say what they want. They can go on and on with their abortion sob stories, but who cares at that point? Then he can say, hey, you know what? How many oaths of office, how many oaths has Vice President Harris taken to defend the Constitution? And has she ever read it? My guess is no one at ABC has ever read it either. So then let the sob stories go on. Who cares? You're not going to appease anybody. It wouldn't change hearts and minds, but it would be a cogent response that didn't end with him talking about illegal immigration every damn time he's asked a question. That was a circular thing that happened too, these little ticks. And with a little bit of, maybe he's not coachable, I don't know, but I just happen to think that he doesn't have good coaches. Because these are very, very simple concepts you can lean on. You don't even have to think about it. And it's all true. You know, if he had the debate prep team, they don't seem to really care about simplistic American responses here. You know, and these are just my critiques. They're very, very simple, powerfully illuminating truths that are on his side. And like you, I wanted him to tap into that, and I want to see him do better. I want to see him do better because I want to see them go down in flames. No doubt about it. And then the moderators bring up this petty issue of Kamala's ethnicity again. My gosh. How delicious it would have been for Trump to say, I don't care what she is. People just think it's interesting how she cherry picks different portions of her ethnic background to focus on from campaign to campaign. It's just an observation people met. You know, it really has nothing to do with our obsession over race. You are just who you are. But why is she the first Asian American woman to reach this office, and now she has to be the first black? That's pandering. Very simple comment that could be followed up with something even better. Why are you asking me about her skin instead of asking her why she has been covering up and continues to cover up the fact that the current president is a fucking vegetable? That's a pretty big scandal that is ongoing, David. The president is completely disabled, and that is ongoing. Oh man, that would have felt, I would have torn my shirt open. Would have torn my shirt open in delight. You know, these are the things. These are the things that got me. The ABC 3-on-1 production, no doubt about it. You want to say that she might have something in her earring? I'd believe you. But there are other things. And speaking of vegetables, this is the biggest one. The biggest missed opportunity of the night. Jay Gulanello and I, we had a great 7 p.m. show. If you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it last night. We took a fresh angle at having a debate primer broadcast by focusing in on the brand new wing, the brand new chapter, the brand new wing of the Trump platform that RFK Jr. brought to the table with the chronic disease stuff. These halfwits at ABC bring up the repeal of Obamacare again. Do you want to repeal it? And if you do, what do you want to replace it with? Like we're going back in time again. And he responds with, I have concepts. I have concepts. It's like, bro, first of all, stand firm on the free market being the better way to keeping healthcare costs down over government monopoly. Who cares? Free market competition will help better than government monopoly. That's number one. Yes, I want to repeal it, and I want to find a way to open up the marketplace to competition to actually bring innovation back to healthcare again. And on that note of innovation, he just added RFK to his ticket. RFK just published a 12-point, very, very specific plan. 12 points of policies that actually addresses our true healthcare problems. It just got published in the Wall Street Journal. It was so perfect. What do you know? Concepts. What do you mean you have concepts? Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Talk about an itch that you can't scratch. Talk about blue balls. Talk about blue balls. My balls were purple last night. That would have been a slam dunk. Absolute slam dunk. I have concepts. So, you know, the ABC, that network over there, they had that house of cards was stacked so high, anything could have taken the whole damn thing down. Now, number one, I think that most people watching this objectively who are not, you know, really just like brain-sucking zombies that are walking in lockstep with the DNC saw that production for exactly what it was. And then, like we said before, the impact of debates is negligible. And the other thing there, too, is the one thing I should say that consistently broke in Trump's favor was the fact that Kamala, she could not hide her true bitch nature. Could not hide. With those facial expressions all night, could not hide. Every man and woman in this country knew what they were seeing right there. We all know those bitches. We hate those bitches. We can't stand when they show up at the barbecue. We can't stand it. But I mean, that's the one thing that broke his way. She is so repulsive and she can't hide it. Can't. So, again, the debates change nothing. The turnout will be what it is one way or another. I just hate the media so much and I want them starved of their sustenance. So I was just like, please, I wanted to jump again. Every time he debates, I want to jump inside of his body and control him like it's like Men in Black. So we have 5 minutes until Matt Christiansen shows up. So give me a buzz, 914-200-0269. You'll be the one and only I can bring in right now. Oh, and of course there's the we got to talk about the animal eating. We got to talk about the animal eating. No doubt that it's happening. That and worse. But one hell of a way to spring that on the nation. One hell of a way. I don't know. That's oh no, he went to the cats and the ducks. He did it. J.D. Vance had a good moment with Caitlin Collins, who tried to nail them against the wall with that too. Maybe we can look at that right after the break, because you know what? It's almost 30. 7:26. Okay, we'll take one more. We'll take one call. Hey, King, you're the only call I can squeeze in before the guest. What'd you think of last night? Go ahead.
I didn't watch Frankie because I could only imagine. Because I can't stand that hoe. I can't. It's too much.
Okay, then quick.
So I figured I'd just go ahead. Sir.
Okay, so then quick, because I have a minute to take a call from someone who did before I get to my my thing. So what you got for me?
All I was going to say was everything you're saying. Well, you know what the president needs? He needs guineas like us in there, because everything you were saying, spot on. He needs like a smart guinea and a street guinea in his cabinet to help him out to combat these fucking demons. That's it.
I would say if there was a little bit of time left, hey, you know what? Because he may, he just may win. And if he does, like Santino just said, we need to get some street guineas in the White House. We need some cabinet positions filled. Street guineas only. Daniel, how are you?
Hey, how are you, Frank?
Doing well. You got a minute and a half. Go ahead.
Okay, well, first off, I want to thank you and Jay Gulanello, because you guys quite literally had a hand in changing my life. You really did. I mean, with the IF diet and learning so much with Jay Gulanello as far as intermittent fasting, eating natural, I've lost 80 pounds in a year since I've been listening to you guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
And dude, I mean, it's just amazing. It's just another reason why I love your show and all the aspects of it, not just the political and all the freaking horribleness going on out there.
80 pounds. That's huge, man.
I mean, dude,
you
and I don't get sick. I do not get, that's why I always I'm like, what is Frank doing? It seems like he's sick every other month.
Who, me?
I'm like, what the hell? Yeah.
What are you talking?
You know when you say, oh, I'm feeling a little way. Oh, I got a little hit in my chest. Oh, I'm like, what the hell is this guy eating?
I got sick in March. I got sick in March, and then I had a post-nasal drip. Yeah. What do you want from me? I don't know what to say.
Was it that long ago? Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? The days go by. The pages flip so fast. You know what I'm saying? When you're so busy and working. So it's real tough to keep track.
Listen, congratulations to you, Daniel, because 80 pounds is huge. That does everything everything. From blood pressure, circulation. I mean, 80 pounds is a third grader. You shed a third grader. And then you took a dig at my own health. I don't know where the hell that came from. I'm perfectly fine right now. Jeez Louise. Anyway, anybody want to call in with any more backhanded comments? All right, let's see here. I'm going to get... Matt's not here just yet. So let's... where the hell are we at? Frank does seem to be sick. What does that even mean? I got sick in March. What is everybody fucking talking about? I saw a couple people agree with him in the chat room, or all that's some strange. People are strange. People are strange when you're a stranger. All right. Well, listen, we've got a friend that's on with us right now. I can't wait to speak with him. His name is Matt Christiansen, otherwise known as commentator number 6. And he is wait, Matt, is that what you're listed as? Commentator number 6?
Of course I'm number 6. Of course I'm the least significant. Of course I'm disrespected in that way. You know, I'm glad I figured it out. I'm glad I wasn't late because I'll admit this to you. I have no embarrassment. We talked about me grabbing the Zoom link, and I went back in our DMs because it's the same Zoom link. But I'm such an idiot that I clicked my own Zoom link, and I'm sitting listening to your stream thinking, well, when am I going to – I got places to be. I got things to do. When's Frank going to let me in? Oh, I'm sitting in my own Zoom call like a dummy.
Well, that's so sad.
I'm glad I realized it, though. I would have delayed your show.
Dude, it's funny. Before we get into a little bit of your situation and how that is going, because I know that the Tenant Media YouTube is just gone. We're starting to learn a little bit more about where this money came from, and it doesn't seem any less suspicious to me than it was the day it broke. But whenever I see somebody cover this story, like I saw, there's a couple of people who really started talking about the insane amount of money that they were paying Tim Pool. I can't imagine you were getting anywhere close to that, because then they would have no money left quick.
No. And if people are curious, I did actually put out a full statement in writing that reveals my contractual details too. Because people were coming at me with allegations like that. Well, how could you not have been curious? They came to you with a giant bag of money and you asked nothing? Okay, first of all, they didn't come to me with a giant bag of money. It's my friend Lauren. She came to me and asked me what an exclusivity deal would look like. She never mentioned a number to me. And I gave her a number that's right in line with the market value of my material. And after a little bit of back and forth, we agreed. So I can't speak to other people's negotiation, how that happened. But for me, there was never some big wow money bag thrown at me. They asked me what a deal would look like, and they negotiated in good faith.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's crazy. Tim Pool, $100,000 a week. That's what it was like shaving out to, or I don't know.
Yeah, people get highly critical of those numbers too. I can't speak to the value of a Tim Pool stream. I don't know. I know there's a lot of super chat. I know there's a lot of people who subscribe and view. It's hard for me to say if that's market value or not, but I do get a kick out of people saying things to the effect of, well, I would never pay for that, or I would blah, 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 blah. Okay, but there is a market value for that product, and if that's what it is, then that's what it is.
Well, I the thing that's made me chuckle all throughout this, and I know that it's it's been a stress for you, it has to be, but one thing that has made me chuckle throughout this entire process is no matter who covers the story for while it's still relevant, they always go through every name, and when it comes, and then it's just like your picture will pop up as they're scrolling through things, and they'll just scroll right past your picture, and nobody ever mentions your name.
This is the bit on my stream. Not only am I commentator 6, I am and others, because you'll notice it'll be like Dave Rubin and Tim Pool and Lauren Southern and Benny Johnson and others. Taylor Hansen is sometimes in the and others group. So you know what I need to do? I wish I had better graphic design, because it's like commentator 6 and others. I got so many t-shirt designs I could do that I'm not selling. The clock is ticking. I need to get on it.
Yeah. Well,
I want to mention too, if people want to see my full written statement, because I talked about it with you for the better part of an hour last Wednesday when the news broke. I talked about it for hours more on my Sunday show. I went on Viva Fry this week. So I talked about it for hours and hours, but in different places. If people want all the information as I understand it, including, again, some of my contractual details in the interest of full transparency, you can just head on over to my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/mattis.k, if you prefer brevity, of course. Mattis.k. It's linked right there on the homepage. You can read basically everything I know about this situation and learn everything as I understand it.
Well, with that, because I have a lot of different questions, but it's we have a short time together, so maybe we can put those in at the end if we have the leeway. But I was really surprised last night, Matt, with this debate that out of all the spaghetti they threw up against the wall, that we did not hear a peep about how right-wing media is being funded by Putin.
I was waiting. It's like, man, I get skipped over at every hit piece, but if I get mentioned at least by proxy here, this is going to be great. No, nothing. You're
nothing.
Right.
Very strange. Very, very strange, because you would think that this would be the greatest use, and it's it didn't. There was just crickets on it. They were talking about Charlottesville and tiki torches again. I said, you're not going to talk about this. That was a surprise. But anyway, what were your big takeaways from last night?
Oh man, I got to hear a little bit of what you were saying, and we're going to talk about it. Since the Tenet thing's not a thing anymore, I'm back doing my own stream on YouTube and X and Rumble, and I'll be going live in about 90 minutes. So I've got a whole show planned out, basically what you're talking about. We're going to talk debate. Blonde's back with me. We're going to talk debate. We're going to talk the alleged cat feast that you were teasing, the Haitian cat feast. But yeah, my thoughts are largely aligned with yours. I mean, I think, okay, the big two items that are going to come away with this, the reason people will remember this debate is the claim about Haitians eating cats and dogs. And people are going to be Googling that, and whether the specifics of that claim are strictly accurate or not, they're going to find out what's going on in Springfield, and it's not good. And then people are going to remember the moderators. And man, it's hard for me to remember. This is not to excuse Trump either. The whole time I thought Trump had a lot of opportunities he didn't take. And I know you're talking about that. So I was frustrated because especially when she was talking about Afghanistan, it's like she was sticking her chin out there ready to just be uppercut. And she was talking about respect for troops in Afghanistan. I'm thinking, respect for troops, like how you don't call the families of the people you got killed by mismanagement. Come on, hit her hard with this. And Trump went back to defensive mode, talking about he actually negotiated a great deal with the Taliban. And there were so many opportunities that he could have taken that I wish he had hit harder on. But man, when you have a situation where the moderators are effectively debaters for your opponent to the extent that they correct you on your points, and all of their corrections some of them were outright false. The fact checks themselves were outright false.
Yeah.
And then even the best of them were debatable. I was going through them again just to remind myself exactly all the fact checks that they made. And every one of them, there's not a one of them they made that doesn't have a counterpoint that undoes the point that they're making. So when you got Kamala Harris over there with free reign to lie, there was one exchange where they asked Trump about January 6th. Again, question selection was something to consider too. Man, weren't you bad on January 6th? Well, Nancy Pelosi played a part in that. No, I think we asked a question about you, not Nancy Pelosi. And then they interrupt him there. They moved to Kamala. Didn't he suck on January 6th? And that's when she went into the parade of lies. There was the bloodbath hoax. There was the tiki torch, very fine people thing. She said police died on January 6th, and they just let it go.
There's quite a few strange police suicides after January 6th that nobody ever talks about that I keep wondering about. But yeah, no, that's wrong.
So and I'll have to look into those. I've never looked into the circumstances of the suicides. And then there was Brian Sicknick, obviously, with the stroke. Originally bludgeoned by fire extinguisher. Turned out to be nothing of the sort, of course. But yeah, so watching it and, of course, hoping for a good performance for Trump, I was just frustrated because I thought there were so many openings, but I'm putting myself in that spot and how frustrating it must be to effectively have a 3-on-1 situation. I wish he could have been more at the start of the debate. He was just sitting there mean mugged, man. Like she was just yapping, and he was not taking the bait. He was just mean mugged, like in that his mugshot from Georgia. He like had that face just locked on. I thought, this is great. He's going to let her yap. He's going to come back to the big points: immigration, the economy, foreign wars. That's it. Hammer her on those. Walk away clean. One way or another, he got kind of rattled. He got into that defensive mode. I could understand how it happened circumstantially. The thing that I'm most surprised by, I guess if I have any level of surprise for the moderators, probably should have seen it coming. The thing I'm most surprised by is Kamala Harris already asking for a second debate. Because if I'm Kamala Harris's campaign manager,
cash out your chips.
Yeah. I think Trump has a lot of improvement he could make. I think he could have destroyed her and she got off easy. For her, I'm trying to think of how she could possibly perform better. She had all the assistance in the world. What upside does she have to take a second debate? So if they're serious about a second debate, I don't understand that strategy at all.
Yeah.
Trump is saying he doesn't want it, which I think he should take it because I think he's got a lot of upside to achieve.
Well,
but if they actually, sorry, go ahead.
No. I think just throwing that out there the next day is a move that they figure if he says no, they're going to say, oh, he doesn't want no more of this. He can't take the heat, all that shit. It's just all of this is just, like I said before, it's a media war, and there's really no substance to any of it, and it's they're just building narratives for the next 6 weeks, and that's it. When do you guys start tonight? 9 o'clock?
9 Eastern. Yep.
9 Eastern. Man, oh man. Oh, what about anything else? Anything else that hit you both on air, off air from yesterday? It doesn't even have to be about the debate. There's just so much going on right now. I definitely think that there's far worse things that are going on right now than the abducted and cannibalized pets. But
I've been looking into it all day, and so I'll get into that a little bit on my stream. But I would love to tell you more about the Tenet stuff if you have time for that.
Yeah,
if you want to talk about.
Okay, that's one thing I wanted to ask is This has come. This news about Tenet came with a almost like blanket statement up front from the DOJ, the FBI, that those of you who were doing the shows that you would have been doing anyway on your own platforms to much bigger audiences that did not need Tenet at all, that those of you who were doing the shows and joining the Tenet network were quite possibly, assuredly duped. This came out front with all of the headlines that there is money that came, but when it comes to the actual founding, your friend Lauren or whoever if she is the founder, if there's somebody else, what's the latest on the actual seed money? Where did the investment money come from? How did she not know that? How do you not trace that back far enough to see whether or not it's coming from a problematic source or an international source? What the hell is that all about?
Yeah, good question. I can't tell you with certainty, but I've been talking to people I know on the inside and trying to figure out exactly what happened here. And I will say, after my week of investigation so far, one of your first questions when we went live on Wednesday, do you believe this was some kind of setup? And I kind of had to just dismiss the question because I didn't have enough information at the time. I thought it was possible, but I don't have enough information at the time. Everybody I'm talking to on the inside, consistent with my own experience, and I know people who were closely involved with the contract negotiations of the others. I was not a party to them, but I know people I would trust with my life who are close to the contract negotiations. Universally, everybody I've spoken to within the company believes that Liam and Lauren, the two running the company, that they were not in on the scam as the indictment alleges. The indictment alleges they knew that this allegedly French businessman investor of theirs was not actually a French businessman. He was a Russian agent, these RT people. But I have seen the evidence in the indictment that they knew that and tricked commentators 1 and 2, as is alleged in the indictment, I think is very flimsy, totally inconsistent with my own experience. But now, after I've had a few conversations on the inside, inconsistent with everybody I've spoken with, including those who were closely involved with the contract negotiations themselves, which brings me to the point of analyzing the effect and the incentives. Because if we're supposed to believe the case as presented by the DOJ, it's that Russian agents working, so they're RT agents, Russia Today, they can't broadcast in the U.S. anymore because they've been banned after Russia invades Ukraine. So they start these covert ops to start exercising influence in the U.S., and that's what Tenet was. That's the official narrative. But what is actually achieved there? If you have $10 million to work with, like you said, universally, the people they contracted, including myself, had full editorial control of everything they did. They created content that either would have existed independent of Tenet or did exist independent of Tenet. I actually thought everyone's content was exclusive. A lot of it wasn't even exclusive. It was just the rights to host it. So if you're a Russian agent guy, what have you actually gained? You are paying millions of dollars for material that was already out there, would have been out there. I can tell you, to the point that you made, if I never had interacted with Tenet at all, the videos I made would have been the exact same thing. They would have been on my channel. And Tenet, unfortunately, never really took off. It didn't get the momentum I think everyone would have liked it to have. There's a credible case, at least in my situation, well, I think really for everybody's situation, the money purchased less influence for those videos. In my case, they were exclusive. So if they were on my channel, pretty good chance they would have had more views on my channel than they did over there. So the money is for what? The money is for reduced influence of something that's supposedly a Russian propaganda op. It doesn't make any sense. The only way it makes sense, and I don't have evidence to this effect, I'm just saying that circumstantially piecing it together and analyzing who benefits, what are the incentives, what are the effects. If you believe Lauren and Liam were tricked, and I do, based on my own experience and based on what I've heard from people who know, well, then why were they tricked and for what purpose? I think what happened here, could it be a U.S. origin? Could it be someone else who's trying to achieve? I don't know. But I think someone went to Lauren and Liam, said, hey, we think you're very talented. We think you've got incredible potential. We think you could build the next big thing. We got a little bit of money we'd like you to work with. Why don't you go round up a bunch of your friends, people you know with influence in this dissident commentator sphere, get them to sign their names on the line. That's the value, I think. What's the value? The names on the line, the creation of the account, and the ability to say that all those people are Russian propaganda agents. And that's been the effect. And it not just smears us, but it smears everybody in this arena as a puppet for Russian propaganda. And then why is it released? Why do we get this news in September? I think we talked about this when you and I spoke on Wednesday. The FBI emails me on Wednesday night shortly before our stream and tells me they think I'm a victim of a crime. How long have you thought I'm a victim of a crime? You've been letting me be a victim for potentially months without asking me or saying anything about that. Why not?
Because it wasn't September yet.
I have to question all that stuff.
Dude, that's exactly the way I've seen this. I've seen other people, draw the same conclusion. I mean, somewhere along the line, the well was poisoned and someone got the George Papadopoulos treatment. Somewhere along the line.
You were dead on.
I don't know.
You saw it exactly right.
I mean, I don't know your friend Lauren, and it's, everybody has their theories, but the timing of this is suspect. If you're even outside of the impact zone of all this, it's always suspect. And what is the larger thing? The larger play here is that it's not only just about you guys who took this opportunity to go and create some content on that one channel. Some of those names being some of the bigger people in the sphere right now. Like him, love him, or hate him. It's just the way it is. But by merit, if you look into the actual indictment, which I'm sure you did, it's equating Russian disinformation to anybody who makes any kind of honest observation about how something as basic as inflation is impacting their lives.
Joy Reid did that. I did get name dropped by Joy Reid on MSNBC, and she says, "Oh, you usually think conservatives or whatever, her political enemies, are just miserable wretches when they say ridiculous things like, oh, the economy's terrible, or oh, affirmative action is bad." Turns out they're getting Cash App deposits from Russia, she said, and that's really the point. You're exactly right. If you're struggling in this economy to feed your family or pay for energy for your home or your car or whatever, if your budget is very tight and you're unhappy about that, you are simply repeating the preferred propaganda of Vladimir Putin.
It has nothing to do with your lived experience. If you feel like that it is taking hundreds of dollars more to keep your refrigerator stocked with good food for your family, if you believe that illegal immigration is changing the face of quiet mountain towns all over the place, if you believe any of this stuff, it's not rooted in reality. You have been, in one way or another, impacted by trickle-down Putin. I mean, it's just trickle-down Putin economics at this point. And that is most definitely the biggest value because, of course, like I mentioned at the beginning, I was on those I was on for those 20-minute segments with you every first Wednesday of the month. Yeah. And I'm looking at the views. I'm looking at the it was a nice cozy little chat room. There's like 200 to 300 people there. But you know, you've got many thousands watching you and Blonde on Sunday night. I was just like, what exactly is Tenet paying for? It's just, or what's the value that you're getting, to be honest? Because if I would only really ever consider, I reject almost every offer that's ever sent my way now, and I will from now on. But still,
isn't that unfortunate too, though? Whether you agree with the decision to make the move or not, from my perspective, it's like, okay, full editorial control of my material plus a little security for my family. Maybe I can make some friends here that will help me advance my career. Those are all the benefits. And I'm not saying you have to take that deal, and there are perfectly valid reasons you might not. But what is discouraging to me is that what if a great opportunity comes to someone like you or anybody else, and you think, well, it's Putin bucks, I can't take it.
Yeah,
so you're suspicious.
It's self-preservation. It keeps everybody in self-preservation mode, where it may be great to collaborate and start a little, start a band. Only we're all, you and a couple of friends who do, similar work in the broadcast and independent broadcast are, starting a new website, and everybody has a time slot. I mean, I've built 2 network format kind of projects, but the whole thing here is, when there's money involved and everything else, it's sad because this is one of your friends here, and you start wondering, are they?
And they are. They're not speaking, obviously. I hope they will sometime soon, and whatever situation they're in, to the extent that I believe they were tricked, and I believe in their character based on my interaction with them, I'm going to give them a good long leash until they're able to come explain what happened before I get upset about anything. I need to hear their side of the story, and I guarantee there are pieces to it that are missing from that indictment. I've only heard, like telephone game stuff. This person said that this person said that maybe someone talked to Lauren or Liam or something like that. So take it with a grain of salt. But I was informed that they're both devastated, not just obviously for what it means for their family, but devastated by the fact that they have now roped their friends into this whole situation. And all of them have effectively been fired or had, revenue streams severed abruptly. And if they are in fact innocent, if they were caught up in something like this, and maybe they didn't exercise due diligence in this way or missed that red flag, but they weren't intentionally deceiving people. They themselves were tricked. If that's what happened to them, and they are now caught up in God knows what Fed world right now, and they can't talk, and they know that all of their friends have just been financially screwed by this, it's got to be it's got to be just awful for them, just painful. I hope they're able to explain what's going on sometime soon.
Well, I thank you for taking the time with me tonight. We wanted to get a little bit of an update. I was really curious to see whether or not this was going to make an appearance in this debate, because aside from a work week's worth of headlines, it's already like kind of fading away. And I thought that for sure with this kind of a setup, there was going to be a spike. And I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens there.
I bet there's more to come.
I bet. I got to imagine
whether it's Liam and Lauren getting indicted or something. I don't think this is the end of this story. I think there's more to come from it.
Well, you and Blonde have a good one tonight, 9:00 on the Matt Christiansen channel, and thanks for everything, man. We'll get together soon and talk about something funny and happy and all that other shit.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
There you go, Matt Christiansen on his way into the new. Actually, what is this? Today's Wednesday? Yeah. Well, he's continuing the time slot, just in a place where he controls. And good for him. Boy, oh boy. I'm not... It is sad. It is sad. Because sometimes that's a major dream. You can get picked up by a network, picked up by a record label, picked up by this and that. And now you just got to really wonder, because if it's one of those things where you either lose your creativity, your creative license, or you're just, you're walking into a damn booby trap. So slow and steady wins the race for me, I guess. Friends with all, or as many as you can get. Entangling alliances with none. That's probably the best way to go. All right, let's see. Yeah, and the other thing that too is because it's September 11th, then I can't help think about the war on terror, all that Patriot Act type remedies that we were forced to live with because of that day in 2001. Here we are 23 years later, and the eye of Big Brother has been refocused squarely on us here at home. From social media activity, memes can get you in trouble especially if it's deemed election interference. AI monitored financial activity. That's definitely where that 2018 IRS income tax discrepancy came from. No doubt about it. They got AI crawling through everything. They sent me a $41 bill. A $41 bill from 2018. I forgot to pay them $41. I'm like, this is no doubt about it. They don't have a human being that was dedicated to my file in 2018. That was AI. They got these things. They got these bots crawling all over the place looking for fucking pennies. And then of course there's new media. Eyes on new media, which is what I think that whole Tenet thing is all about. At this moment, at least. Makes me wonder if it was always the plan. All right, it's 7:56. Let's take a quick break. When we come back in the second half, I'm going to get your super chats. Hopefully we can get a couple of your calls in. And then we got Jeremy Reese on with us, the alien scientist, to discuss why there is science to be distrusted behind the 9/11 official story 23 years later. So don't go anywhere, because it's going to be a great second half. And thank you again to Matt Christiansen for joining us. Be right back.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button.
Quite frankly.
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 Quite frankly. Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly, guys.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
So everybody watch, Quite Frankly, with Frank.
Dare you.
All right. 7:59. Running efficiently tonight. That's the good thing about second half guests. It keeps you on your toes. So Jeremy Reese will be with us in about 15 minutes or so. We got plenty to talk about. It'll be a little bit controversial. But I like controversy. Then who knows? I might have to delete this episode on YouTube afterwards. That's when you know you really had a good night. Is this going to stay on YouTube or not? All right, first one up. Let's go to quitefranklysuperchat.com, and there is Jay Britt says, "Hey Frank, Pat says hi." What's going on, Pat? And what's going on, Jay? Good to have you with us. All right, so we have a super chat. Well, let's see, a Rumble rant. 925 Wild G says, "Purple balls or not, you're funny when you get all frenetic and agitated." Yes. Well, everybody in my family becomes funnier when they're agitated. It doesn't feel good for us, but afterwards, if people had a good time, I guess it's all right. 925 Wild G then says, "Feel better, Frank." I know. I could feel the sickness coming on right now. Gonna go home and take some ivermectin. I take a double dose every night because I just feel the sickness. I feel it coming. Let's see. On quitefrankly.tv, Road Trip says, testing 1, 2, 3. Installa keeps hanging out. Hoping for another debate. Independents unsure via New York Times. Hey, I don't even care about the independents and the Democrats and the Republicans. This is all about you're going into an adversarial media rat's nest, and you've got to be able to throw a monkey wrench, sand, and a grenade in the gears and leave successfully. And I just want, hey, man, We got to get him one of those pair of those. We should get Donald Trump a pair of those earrings and let me talk to him in the middle of this, or Tucker Carlson, or RFK. That would be something. Just get somebody in his ear. Okay, if they're going to ballot harvest, we gotta, whatever the hell, even the score out. If he shows up with any of those pearl earrings, sometime in October, we'll know that we're in for some shit. Sean Joe, thank you so much. Witchy Poo, thank you. Just gifted a 1-month bronze tier subscription. And who claimed it? Stacks. Telling you, hang out quitefrankly.tv. You get right in on it. 123SKG says, how much has New York City changed in 23 years? A lot. It's changed a lot. But, it's still, especially in certain places, because there's a bunch of places in the city where it still is very quiet and calm and well kept and all of that. But, when you're talking about a city pockmarked with good places to go, that's not a big tourist attraction right there. And it's still a magical place. There's still it's a technological architectural marvel. There's so much history there. Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it is. That's rural, urban, suburban. There's wonderful things about all parts of this country. But it was really 2020 onward where things are... That was far more devastating than 9/11. Spirit-wise. Because remember, there was September 11th, 2001, and you're talking about a loss of life. 2020 definitely resulted in far more than 3,000 people being lost in this state alone. Governor Cuomo. So you want to talk about loss of life? There's definitely something that we can weigh out there. But there was some kind of American patriotic spirit that was able to be harvested after September 11th and sustained for at least a year, and it was used to justify the wars and all that other stuff. That cannot be done anymore. That can't be done anymore. There's no more heart left like that. So people are coming to new realizations about what's really going on behind the scenes in different ways. And 2020 was was flattening in such a bigger spiritual way. It's one thing to be suddenly shocked at one sunny Tuesday morning in 2001 in September and just seeing that go on in your city, and then have this whole new terror. Whatchamacallit, we had the color grades, the terror watch scale. Oh, today it's yellow. Tomorrow it could be orange. Oh, we're pushing it up to red today. Imminent, almost like it's a tornado warning. It's one thing to have that in the consciousness, to be thinking about external threats, foreigners that are coming in, splinter cells that are, waiting for people to gather so they can blow themselves up. It's another thing in 2020 to be told that you could be the terrorist. You went to the family gathering without a mask on. You're Al-Qaeda. I mean, so there was plenty of good times still to be had in that city even after 2001, though that was a real definitive watershed moment right there. But nothing really flattened it like 2020. Well, we'll see, man. All things are made new after a while, and I don't know. We're in the bricklaying business right now. We gotta build foundations. All right, here we go. Sean Joe, thank you so much. Delona says, when you smacked the desk last night, you were channeling all of us. Oh, you remember that? I couldn't take the... You're making me stop. That's just fun. Like I said, every man and woman in this country saw that and said, oh, she's a real bitch. Now, if she's your bitch, if you've been trained to just hate Donald Trump with every fiber of your being and she becomes your default champion, you got to root for her. It's like, the relief pitcher comes in that has blown so many games for your team throughout the baseball season. But man, oh man, they're in a tough spot. They're the last one. They're the last fresh arm in the bullpen. And we got to hope that they do well because we got to beat our rivals. That's it. That's all it was. That's all it was. She's Steve Howe. All right, let's see. The Sentinel says, the moment that I thought VPK exploited the most was the claim that Donald doesn't grasp the facts about the 2020 election and how that might ring true to independent casual voters. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a pretty good point. Here's one from CNBC. Rick Santilli, I got this from Trump War Room, goes off on ABC's debate moderators over their failure to press Kamala on any of her economic quote-unquote promises or how her policies drove prices sky high in the first place. The ABC people were like a turkey shoot, he said. Listen to this. It's about 1 minute and 50 seconds long.
Let me just ask then, since we're on the topic, Rick, how you feel about tariffs?
You know how I feel about tariffs? It's a bargaining chip. And many of the tariffs with China are still on. Once again, the moderators don't drill down on the two aspects of tariffs, but they do drill down on other areas that make no economic sense whatsoever.
But you don't think the tariffs raise prices? Just as a mathematical economic...
Listen, prices are going up no matter what, Andrew. Whether you do it on the tax side, whether you do it on the tariff side, our policies are silly. We can't be Santa Claus. All those programs aren't policies, they're promises that never get by Congress, and each one of them has a cost we can't afford because we've done this before. When you prepay and you make policies that don't make economic sense, you may think you're getting a benefit. Look at what we learned yesterday. Finally, wages reach 2019, but it doesn't reflect how much they've gone up since 2019. If you're out there and you're a young person, study up. Study up. All these superstars that made recommendations in such a timely fashion yesterday, maybe they don't feel the pain of what's going on, but I feel bad that they can't buy houses and insurance. You think these prices of insurance are going to go down, Andrew? You think people in Florida that could barely hold on to their homes could afford 300% increases in their insurance?
There is no question about that. It's a very true statement.
Right, so then why don't we talk about it? Why don't we talk about it?
Well, then there's other issues around climate issues and other things that are affecting things in Florida.
What issues did you learn last night? The ABC people were like a turkey shoot.
When he said climate issues, he's like, when that doofus in the middle said there's climate issues and everything else, is he actually talking about climate? Like the climate? Like green shit? Or is he talking about the economic climate? I wonder. Yeah. There's other things that people just can't be let squiggle away anymore. When they say, "Oh, their plan is going to explode the deficit or the debt," say, "Oh yeah, of course. If you keep spending, yes, cutting taxes, eliminating taxes, eliminating all of the income for this mutant government that should not exist in its current form, would explode the deficit and the debt. If you keep spending's got to get cut." That would be sacrilege. Sacrilege, because that's how you buy votes. Now, I understand, like we were talking about the other night when Jeremy Ryan Slate was in here, that's all you just rip that away right now, all those subsidies, all those means-tested programs. That's how you can kill tens of millions of people in just a couple of months. No doubt about it. It's got to be sunsetted out somehow. Got to save ourselves. I mean, if we were sane. But I don't see any of that happening. I don't see any of that. Anyway, what else do we have? Oh, here's another one for you. Got a couple of minutes before Jeremy Reese is on with us. The Western Journal. Independent journalists make disturbing findings in Springfield, Ohio. We need somebody to do something. If the present course of human events compels future historians to write about the titanic clash between good and evil that began in the 2020s in the United States, they might have to devote an entire chapter or entire chapters to the situation unfolding in Springfield, Ohio. Small wonder, therefore, that the corrupt establishment and its media minions do not want you to know about it. In an incredible and potentially regime-shaking series of clips posted to the social media platform X on Tuesday and Wednesday, 4 female residents of Springfield, including one desperate woman who pleaded for somebody to do something, told independent journalists Taylor Hansen and Tyler Oliveira that the government-sponsored influx of Haitian migrants to their small town has created an untenable and dangerous situation. Indeed, readers who have the blood of American patriots cannot watch these clips without feeling a swell of anti-federal rage. For nearly 4 years, President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have facilitated the open border situation. The situation in Springfield, however, stems from something even worse than an open border. Under the Biden administration's CHNV program, tens of thousands of illegal immigrants arrive in the United States each month directly from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Evidently drawn to various economic opportunities, thousands of Haitians have now found their way to southwestern Idaho or Ohio. In recent weeks, reports out of Springfield have detailed some alleged horrors. For instance, rumors abound that Haitian immigrants, or migrants, I should say, have abducted and eaten both wildlife and family pets. We started getting that in upstate New York. We're talking about the upstate New York, that there was like geese that were hold on. Upstate New York protected geese migrants feast upon the flesh. What is this? Canadian? I remember doing it. What the hell? It might have been on a Friday with Matt. Whatever. It's happening in more places than you think. On X over the weekend, those rumors prompted a new slew of memes depicting former President Donald Trump as a savior of cats and ducks. They're fantastic memes. Predictably, liberals and other establishment operatives lost their mind. But this is what's going on here. Another unnamed female resident reported personally seeing a severed pig's head. City officials said that she chalked it up to cult stuff, and that's what you have. Listen, you have to remember, voodoo is a very, very real thing in that part of the Caribbean. Voodoo, okay? It's a very real thing. That's not the other one. I've seen several people talking about that. That it's not just about, oh, look, there's free protein walking around in the the town square. Let's go and sever the head, leave the head behind, and take the body and eat it behind the bleachers at the football stadium, the high school football stadium. It's other things there too. A lot of this could be ritualistic. So there's all this is happening, and that's on top of the Aurora, Colorado incident and the reports of these apartment complexes that are being taken over and turned into a business for, newly imported gangs. And just like in the UK, the local government, the local media, the local law enforcement, they are far more inclined to try to cover it up and not kick any beehives. And they also don't want to give any political fuel to people who are very rightfully criticizing open borders policies and everything else that's really just an endgame policy to move this to a decisive conclusion over here. But again, with Tenet, that's Russian disinformation. If you can't put any food on the table, if you don't like the fact that there's somebody, I don't know, sewing together some kind of a doll, a cursed doll with goose blood in the town hall, that's your problem, man. Yours and Putin's. Okay, let's see here. So now the other thing that we have going on tonight is my good friend, an old friend, Jeremy Reese. Jeremy Reese is coming back on. The alien scientist, as he's been known for many years now. He's been in the game a long time. Classified technologies, likes talking about classified technologies. A classified technologies historian whose work concentrates not only on unidentified flying objects, but also he's done a considerable amount of work the events of September 11th, 2001, and he's here with me again for the first time since the spring. Jeremy, how you been, man?
Hey, what's up?
Oh, just chilling. I'm just chilling over here. What did you eat for dinner tonight?
I ate a Wendy's spicy chicken sandwich, dude. I didn't have time to cook.
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to go to goose or rabbit, something like that. Oh, how's the local?
No, I didn't have the Chinese buffet. I sent you a link of a bunch of these Chinese restaurants that got closed down for serving dogs and cats. So that was, that whole thing with Trump's comment at the debate. It was another fact check. He said, well, the mayor said it didn't happen there. But it's like, if you post a video about people eating dogs and cats, it's going to get flagged and taken down right away. So how's the proof ever going to get out there? How can you fact check that? So anyways, that was a weird thing. And I thought it was funny that I looked up, and when does your audience think that they actually banned the sale of cat and dog meat in America? Just take a wild guess.
Okay, if I would take a wild guess,
closest date wins.
I would say
in the comments without looking it up. And if you know, don't spoil it.
Let's give it a second. Okay. Everybody in the chat room, what date? Just spam the chat right now with the date that you would believe that the banning of cat and dog meat would have taken effect. Just any date. Here we have
1940, 1950.
There's 2004, 1995. Let's see what else comes in. Just throw it out there. Be part of it. 1860, 2005, 1950, this morning, 1978, the 70s, 2020, 1972, 1992, never, 1986. Jeremy, what's the truth of the matter here?
2018.
Oh, 20. Geez, that's so what has precipitated this? It had to be an act of Congress?
I must have been the Biden administration. Or, no, was that Trump? That was Obama, actually, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was Obama. It was right before Trump.
Yeah.
So, actually, no, wait, Trump
2018
2016 to 2020.
That's the midterms.
Trump.
Yeah.
So finally, under Trump, we had the ban of the sale of cat and dog meat, which is funny that they didn't bring that up.
Well,
Trump didn't brag about that in the debate. So, but
it's funny because 2 years after that is when we have the first theory about COVID being born from a Chinese wet market, and I thought it was incredible. That's another part last night. It's very easy to forget little tiny things that happened in that charade on ABC, because she actually came after Trump for thanking President Xi for cooperating about one thing or another regarding COVID, when he was the one that covered up the origins of the virus, that they all said to even talk about the virus as being Chinese in origin is racist at first. I couldn't believe that they jumped on the origin bandwagon last night.
I was one of the first to support that lab leak hypothesis when I learned about the Wuhan lab that was doing the coronavirus related research, and I remember, that was the response was, you're racist, but it's okay to say it came from bat soup, and that the Asian people are out there eating bat soup. That's not racist at all. But if you say that it came from the bioweapons coronavirus laboratory that happened to be right next door to it, then it was just another tactic to shut down the truth, that they didn't want information coming out. And there's a lot of people that also believe that Wuhan thing was a distraction as well, that it was actually a bioweapon developed in the U.S. at Fort Detrick, Maryland, by the same people that developed the whole anthrax AIM strain virus that was mailed to Senator Tom Daschle's office, and the other senator who was pushing for an investigation of 9/11.
Yeah, that reminds me. The anthrax thing reminds me of, man, everything about 2001, especially September of 2001, brings me back to high school. And the anthrax thing right afterwards brings me back. It was some of the scariest, most transformative time, but also there was a buzz in the air. There was an electricity that I think some people are still charged by that electricity and the work that they do, especially you. And last night, Of course, they were going to bring January 6th up. They weren't going to leave that shit out. But the fact that everybody at ABC was allowed to wiggle away from calling January 6th the worst attack this country has seen since the Civil War on the eve of 9/11's 23rd anniversary, that was quite something. So that's how I'll break open the 9/11 discussion with you. What do you think about that first?
Yeah, that was quite a statement that she's, obviously more concerned with, the usurp of government where, a couple people died and there was no police officers killed. They didn't fact check her on that either. Ashley Babbitt was killed, I think, and there were police officers that committed suicide, of course, afterward, as you mentioned before. But to compare that, to say that was the worst thing to happen since the Civil War, it just totally ignores 9/11. And it just shows, that her administration is going to be completely ignorant of any kind of openness to inquiry, or they're so deep state entwined. It's just so obvious that she is a puppet with nothing to really offer the American people. I believe she just hasn't said a word about disclosing anything. Hasn't said a word about the JFK files. I know that I was actually a RFK fan of I was a big fan of Robert Kennedy. Got into a lot of the vaccine stuff because of him. Learned about how he sued CDC. Learned about the lawsuits. Learned about how the CDC engaged in a cover up and how we got a clean house on these agencies. And this is super important that we do not let, that we wear, people said, oh, Trump's a national embarrassment. And I agree. I'm not a Trump supporter. I came over from Kennedy because I realized that we gotta put our eggs in this basket or we're going to get this basket case run in the country. And she is not an intelligent person. She's not a forward-thinking person. You can tell that whole thing was staged. They gave her all the debate questions and she had memorized and scripted the answers beforehand. And they all teamed up to attack, Trump on questions and fact check everything he said, even with bad sources and ridiculous claims that could never be verified, like the one I brought up right at the beginning of this. And, just trust the mayor. The government said, well, that's the source. He said it definitively and authoritatively, like, oh, well, the head of the government from that state said this, so therefore it's absolutely true and the definitive truth of the matter.
Yeah,
and it's just
that's
the logic that we're pushing forward on the American people, and I think every intelligent person in the country just realized how much trouble this country is in after watching that debate.
No, it's bad. It's a tough thing to think about because, like you were saying there, what it really to even make the 9/11 comparison or to completely gloss over it, in lieu of trying to exalt this mosh pit on January 6, 2021 as being something worse than I've heard it saying it's worse since 1812. It's the worst since Pearl Harbor. 9/11 was actually an afterthought for some of these people when they were, marching out the hyperbole. But I think what it really shows there is it's a year zero mentality. The book is closed on everything that happened prior to 2016 or whatever the hell it is, especially something like September 11th. And you're talking about transformative events that the 2020 was essentially slow motion 9/11 as far as how civil society has changed, how privacy has changed, everything that goes along with it. But since it's the day, 23 years later, I know you've done a lot of work on the topic of September 11th, 2001. So on that note, I'd love to just toss this to you. If I were to ask you to break down some of the most, in your opinion, irrefutable scientific pieces of evidence that disproves the official story, where do you start with that?
Well, I would just start with the forensic evidence for who was in charge of protecting the country that day and what their background is. So Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, Vice President Dick Cheney. You go back in history, both of those guys, started in the Ford and Nixon administration, and they worked on these COG disaster scenario planning think tanks for this super secret continuity of government program. So their job was to think up these scenarios, just like 9/11. They atomic bombs exploding, any kind of crazy doomsday scenario. It's called the Armageddon Plan. I actually wrote an article that I published on medium.com today that has all this stuff sourced and linked so people can look it up. But their job was to plan 9/11, and to think that they didn't think of 9/11, but script writers for the X-Files did, because they wove it into their Lone Gunman episode, for the pilot episode of their Lone Gunman spinoff of the X-Files. So if X-Files script writers could think this up, then surely, the people who are in charge of protecting our country and sitting on these scenario planning think tanks thought up 9/11. And they were the people in charge of protecting us on that day. And Donald Rumsfeld abandoned his post. He was in the North Tower. The plane miraculously hit the only tower, the west wing of the Pentagon, that had just undergone a $258 million refurbishment to repair the whole thing, by a contractor who was good friends with Donald Rumsfeld, by the way. So the plane crashes into that wing that had just recently been equipped with bomb-resistant siding and windows, and it misses the north wing of the Pentagon, where Rumsfeld and all the important offices were, like Paul Wolfowitz and whatnot. So Rumsfeld abandons his post, goes out onto the front lawn, and starts picking up plane debris off the front lawn and moving it around, which is very fishy.
Rumsfeld personal? I never heard that part.
Yeah, you can look this up. He's photographed on the lawn. It was it's reported in the Washington Post, New York Times, everything. That's what he did on 9/11. That's what Rumsfeld did on 9/11. He abandoned his post and went and picked up plane debris off the Pentagon lawn, basically tampering with evidence, crime scene evidence.
My gosh, that is I never heard that one. And what the funny thing is today too, Tom Fitton, he posted this today. Where is it? Hold on, let me get you up with me. He said, in order to help address 9/11 conspiracy theories, Judicial Watch sued and obtained the Pentagon parking camera footage from American Airlines Flight 77 hitting that side of the Pentagon.
Yep.
And I said to myself, as I was watching these same pixelated, it's like 3 frames, 1, 2. There you go. There's the 1 frame of something. 1 and 2 right on it, and there it is. There you go. That's the 1 frame we have. So we have 1 frame of something. It makes no sense. And when I'm looking at that, you're talking about,
it makes sense if you understand, that this was before DVRs. This was back in the age of, this was before NVRs. Digital video recorders. This was on the days of where you had everything was on analog tapes, and the or on storage drives that were just, the old school storage drives. So this was back when 1 gigabyte was a big, 1 gigabyte hard drive was like a terabyte hard drive is today. So the data storage that they had was much less. So the videos, they would record it, 1 frame every 5 seconds, because that's all they could, afford to keep, data wise, because the cost of the data storage and how long they could keep backups for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of makes sense there, why there's only these many frames, but it doesn't make sense why they confiscated all the tapes but definitely shows, I believe, a plane hit the Pentagon. There was plane debris on the lawn. I have no debate that it was American Airlines Flight 77. That was
because there is still a lot of debate on that one. So that would be interesting, because I know that you're not a person that would say
there is a whole group of disinformation agents that post and spread the most ridiculous theories on 9/11 on purpose to make anyone who looks at it be like, oh, these people are nuts. There's nothing to see here, and this is all crazy, crazy land. But the reality is that Philip Zelikow, head of the 9/11 Commission, I believe that the 9/11 Commission was composed of a lot of good people in the government that did their best to investigate, but the leadership was I believe, compromised because Philip Zelikow has some ties to the Iraq War invasion strategy and the people that wanted to go into Iraq, including, Paul Bremer, who was the first guy to tell us the official story on MSNBC the morning of 9/11. He missed work. He worked in the World Trade Centers on the 93rd floor for Marshall McLennan, and he's the guy that Bush appointed to lead the Iraq War invasion. So the same group of characters, investigating the crimes of 9/11 and being so connected to the crime scenes, it just seems very suspicious with the whole, what happened with the Iraq War, following 9/11 and the whole scandal with the WMDs. But there's a lot of issues about this whole the people that say there was no planes. That's another one of the disinformation things. And then that leads to the question of, why they use the planes if they just, we're going to blow up the buildings, why use planes at all? And there's a lot of players involved that I think people need to understand if you really dig into this, like I have the last 20 years, and done the research. And I think that those players are you go back to the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. So one of the towers was bombed by a Palestinian, I think it was I'm not sure where the guy was from, but it ended up being like an FBI informant that actually bombed the 93 World Trade Center bombing. And when they repaired the building damage, the company that was hired to do that was called Tridata Corporation. That's what's on, if you read the report, the engineering report. So Tridata Corporation would have gotten access to all the engineering blueprints for the World Trade Center in order to do those repairs. So that's where we believe this group got access to that important information in order to know how to rig those towers and bring the towers down. Because you point out that this company, Tridata Corporation, was a subsidiary of SPC International, Systems Planning Corporation International, which is the company that developed those uninterruptible autopilot systems for the Boeing aircraft that were apparently installed on all 4 of the flights that were used on 9/11, and they could have locked out cockpit controls and flown those planes from the ground with remote control.
So you're on the so you're talking about remote control then. This may have been what it really was. It wasn't actual. It wasn't actual.
They had the technology to lock those hijackers right out and fly those planes by remote control, and they had it on those flights on 9/11. So why didn't they use it? And if they did have that technology, it comes into the question on who was flying those planes, right?
You see, going back to the Pentagon, that's one of the biggest points of contention. It's just the point was that we have these novice Middle Eastern pilots that can barely control Cessna in training or whatever, and then you have this American Airlines 77 that is doing a high-speed descending corkscrew maneuver into the side of the Pentagon, which is already a short building compared to a skyscraper, that there's no way that a novice pilot would have been able to pull that maneuver off. That's why most people said, this has got to be a missile.
I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not going to say one way or the other. I'm just saying these are all things that many researchers consider anomalies. And, when you talk to I've debated with skeptics like Michael Shermer, who say that, the conspiracy theorists are simply anomaly hunting and going through an anomaly hunting. And no, we're finding these anomalies just doing the research, and anomalies shouldn't exist unless you've applied a bad theory.
Okay. Right? I guess so. And it's one of those things where I always say it's like up to us. We almost are forced to speculate when we're
you come up with the theory that explains all these anomalies away, then suddenly, that might be the right theory.
So then where do you go from? So, okay, we'd spent a little bit of time on the Pentagons.
So the plane thing, that was an interesting connection that the guys who made the systems for the remote control planes, SBC International Corp, was the parent corporation of the company that did the World Trade Center investigation on the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. So that's a weird connection from remote control planes to the people that re-engineered the World Trade Centers in 93 after the bomb.
Okay. All right. So, let's stay in the planes for a second, because here's another one. There has been a lot said about the capability in 2001 for people to make and maintain cell phone calls during a flight, especially maybe not at cruising altitude, but at cruising speed. Did you ever spend any time on the validity of those arguments that it was not possible?
Well, this is the thing, right? You think about remote control plane technology, and would you believe it goes back to the 1940s? Mid 1940s is when Martin Marietta Corporation started their research on this, and you can look up Ed Witten's father worked on this. Lewis Witten, he testifies to this. So you can look that up. So how far back does AI technology? They say the government has stuff that's 20, 30 years ahead of what the public has. So if we have AI technology here in 2024, 20 or 30 years ago was, what did the government have? As forms of voice morph technology. And there's some weird anomalies that people have pointed out. And it's certainly interesting, as forensic evidence to look at some of that and consider some of that. And I played that on my stream in the past and talked about that. But as far as, direct evidence of who, anyone could have done that and been responsible for that. So who do you actually hold accountable? And that's what, if we want to get 9/11 justice and really, find the people, we need to focus on theories and information avenues that, can look at the people who may have been responsible and I think hold them accountable. Like the people that insured the buildings, I think Larry Silverstein got the $4.5 billion insurance payout from the towers coming down.
Yeah.
And, what happened with the insurance company on that? Like where those insurance policies go? Was that AIG? Because AIG got convicted of running reinsurance scams in 2008, just like 7 years after 9/11. So was there some sort of policy going on inside there? I think that needs to all be investigated because AIG, let's face it, their whole history is they were the CIA's right-hand man over in Asia during World War II. And with Cornelius Vanderstar, if you look up the history of AIG. And then Maurice Greenberg's son, Jeffrey Greenberg, worked right in the World Trade Center next to L. Paul Bremer for Marsh & McLennan. So they're right in the towers too. And then you look at who ran security in the World Trade Center, and you find out that the people that had the electronic security contract, the people who installed the actual cameras, the electronic badging, and the electronic systems, actually installed all the cameras at United Airlines, at Dulles International Airport and Logan International Airport, Securicom Stratesec. And then the board of directors for this company is the president's brother, Marvin Bush. So, and that's all documented, and you can fact check that it's like a Bush-connected CIA front company running security in the World Trade Centers before 9/11, which they never were questioned. And then the CEO of that company was connected to those put options that were placed on American Airlines and United Airlines before 9/11. Someone put bets that the stocks would fall. So someone knew a lot of stuff and was trying to make some side money on top of money that I think was already being made by this whole investment, cartel that connects, I believe, to the presidency with George H.W. Bush, the father of President Bush at the time, who was actually in the Carlyle Group meeting at the in the Watergate Hotel. And it's interesting that Securicom Stratesec, that World Trade Center security company, their parent company was Kuwaiti American Corporation, which was this whole front company created to during the Kuwait war invasion by Bush's dad. And they held their annual meetings in the Saudi embassies, which is the same people that financed the hijackers, and according to the 9/11 Commission, So there needs to be more investigation into 9/11. There's definitely more going on there with the whole, Venice, Florida, where the hijackers trained at this like CIA connected flight school. All the other flight schools said this guy was, Rudy Deckers was running out of money and running some shady operations over there. And then suddenly he had all this money in the world and he's training all these pilots from Saudi Arabia and these other countries, how to fly at his flight school. It's kind of the stories. The stories just don't add up when you really dig into the whole investigation and the background.
Can I ask you about the pilots themselves? Have you done any research into, because there's been plenty of people who have made who have made presentations over the years that have been put on the internet and everything, and you think things to read and also watch, that there have been a substantial number of those 19 hijackers that have been confirmed to be alive afterwards, almost like people saying that the entire flight crew from the Challenger is alive and, working as teachers and whatever the hell else.
Yeah, you remember those videos and those guys saying that they're all alive and changed their names and slightly and professors and stuff. Yeah, that's all really weird stuff.
But have you, as far as your personal interest, have you gone into verifying?
I think that the FBI should have investigated that, because they are this someone who can go over to foreign countries. I can't. That's like a boots on the ground type of thing. We're here in Boston and New York, so I did a lot of boots on the ground kind of investigations myself. My friend worked at Logan Airport, and when he changed out the security cameras in like 2004, 2005, he gave me all the old ones that were actually the originals in the airport on 9/11, just for posterity. I remember documenting and showing people like this is what the quality was of what they were filming, why we don't have any footage, any of these hijackers boarding any of the flights out of Boston. There's a couple pictures from Dulles, but there's no timestamp on the video. So because that equipment was installed by Securicom Stratosec, that a video could have been filmed anytime, or it could have been filmed at any point.
So all right. Well, we talked about the Pentagon. We talked about. I'd love to talk about Building 7 in just a second, but what about Pennsylvania? A lot of people think about that, or a lot of people look at the footage and all the images from that little strip of woods in Pennsylvania, and everybody I've ever known makes the comment that it looks like a skid mark on the floor. Where the hell is the plane? How does that just break apart and evaporate like that? That's one of those things I never could understand, because hell, whatever was released from the crash site really did look very scarce as far as debris goes. So what have you done on Pennsylvania before we get into the actual towers in Building 7?
That's where they claim that they flew the plane so fast and straight into the ground that it just vaporized and turned into a liquid and just disappeared in deep in the earth. But there were other reports of a debris field, going out up to 12, 14 miles away. So it looks, if that's the case, then it had to have been shot down at a fairly high altitude.
Yeah, if that's the case, then yeah. Because the whole story about Pennsylvania is that was forced down by heroic passengers.
Right.
But if there's a debris field...
But it also could have been a trigger-happy pilot that went against orders and was just like, no, I'm going to shoot this thing down. Two of them already hit the trade centers, and one of them hit the Pentagon, and this one, we don't know where it's going. And we're here over Western Pennsylvania where there's like no casualties. Yeah, I'm taking that shot. You know what I mean? I think that's more likely. And that he did, that after he did that, they commanded him just to fire another missile into the ground. And then they scooped up all the plane parts and dumped them in the hole. I don't know. That's a weird one. And it's also interesting that NBC, the morning of 9/11, you go back to the footage at 9:04 a.m. on the NBC footage, coverage of 9/11 from that day. A correspondent comes on and says that she's a State Department correspondent, and that the FBI, their entire hostage unit or something was sent to, Monterey, California for a company retreat the week of 9/11. So they put agents out of place, out of New York, out of place, and they had other agents come in to put on the investigation. I mean, the whole crime scene in New York City at downtown was shut down. All of Battery Park City was, gated off, and they've shipped off all the World Trade Center 7's debris first, and they sprayed down World Trade Center 7 with a million gallon, like 2 million gallons of this Pyrocool FEF super fire retardant foam liquid, which is also loaded with PFAS. that forever dangerous forever chemical that RFK talks all about and stuff, and that's in everything. It's in all those fire retardant foams, but they sprayed the whole World Trade Center down with millions of gallons, and fires still burned underground until December 19th. That was when the FDNY reported the last fire extinguished at Ground Zero.
Wow.
3 months later.
That's nuts. That really, and I remember that there too, and that PFAS that's on top of the fact that the Tower 1 and 2 were chock full of asbestos. And I remember that there too, that project of taking that all out would have cost a lot of money, and nobody wanted to really undertake it. But let's talk about, because we're running a little bit out of time. We got to do more on this, and I also
Building 7. Also, one more thing I want to make on Building 7 is that
I want to talk about that. Yeah.
The main tenant in Building 7 was Solomon Smith Barney, and Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney both sat on the board of directors for Solomon Smith Barney, and they quit just to join the Bush administration. So they might have worked and held meetings in Building 7 and known a lot of what went on in that building than we think. So there's a lot that needs to be investigated. World Trade Center 7 wasn't even mentioned by the 9/11 Commission, so they didn't investigate it at all. Just imagine what they would find if they did. There's a whole allegations of the Enron files, being covered up in Building 7 and other allegations. So a lot of that I'd like to see looked into more deeply. Of course, we have to start, I think, with maybe JFK and 9/11, some of these other things, maybe COVID because it's more recent, or Trump mentioned releasing the JFK files, which I believe are still held secret because the JFK's Oswald's handler is still alive, Ruth Paine, the landlady. There's a whole documentary called JFKPaine.com, which goes into the JFK assassination from a very interesting angle. I think everyone should go check that out as well, because we're at the verge of exposing this whole entire network of CIA operatives that have just destroyed and plagued this country for the last 70 years or more.
Well, that would be great if it actually happens. That would be great. I'd be rooting it on the whole time. But just like JFK, when we're talking about Building 7, when you tell us there was a single shot fired from a single weapon, a single shooter coming from behind the president, and the video that you get years later shows at least 2 bullets striking the president from the front, one through the throat, goes to grab his neck, the other one takes his head off, throws it back. It doesn't matter if we don't get the full picture and every detail laid out. It's just enough to know that all of this is bullshit. And that's the same thing with Building 7. I don't pretend to know everything. I can't pretend to know everything, but something like that is almost all you need to at least know I am being messed with here. Have you ever looked into, aside from the fact that, it's the third building that went down that day that nobody in all those reports never even mentions, the fact that it was reported having gone down before it actually was, ahead of the time. We have those famous comments from Larry Silverstein about how he just, told the fire department to pull it as if instantly there was perfectly placed demolition equipment throughout the entire. How do you just pull it? What do you mean? If you're rigging a building like that to come down, that takes God knows how long to actually set a good, effective demolition up. But just like did you ever look into the Alaska Fairbanks studies that have come out about Building 7? Because they've done a couple of pretty definitive studies over the last 5 or 6 years that I think were really interesting. I was wondering if that ever crossed your path.
Yeah, I've seen those. A couple of people have, pointed out some criticisms with the modeling and stuff, the beams, going through other beams and doing impossible physics and stuff. And so there might be some, there is some use to modeling and doing that, aside from building a full scale replica of the World Trade Centers and slamming a plane into it to settle the debate.
Right.
I don't know if we'll ever settle that debate. It's kind of like the driver shot Kennedy or the grassy knoll debate. It's kind of like you could argue all day over, who pulled the trigger, but if you don't know the network behind how it all got set up and the people, who profited from it, like you look at SAIC, for example, which is present day Leidos Corporation. They made all the airport scanners that got sold after 9/11. So if you got terahertz technology and you know how to scan people and you want to set up this surveillance state with your people scanners and put cameras everywhere. By the way, I live in Rhode Island. There are cameras on like every street corner. They started with the schools and saying that they wanted to keep the kids safe and putting the cameras in front of the schools. And now they're just everywhere. They've made so much money. They've made millions of dollars in these tickets, these camera tickets and stuff. It's crazy what it's happened, since 9/11. If you look at how much has changed because of that, these airport scanners went up though. That was SAIC Leidos Corporation that built that technology back in the day. Now, Leidos SAIC is interesting because their scientists wrote a majority of the NIST report, and they were actually, a lot of their scientists helped develop nanothermites along with, Battelle Memorial Institute, who has the patents on, the nanothermite cutter charges, which the scientists who've analyzed the dust samples determined that that's what they used to kind of covertly demolish the buildings without. It's an interesting, hypothesis. It's up there with the official government story that jet fuel and fires and gravity and the floor smashing caused the buildings to fall in under 8 seconds, and building 7 in 6.5 seconds. It's defies logic when you really look at it with an open mind. But if you want to sit there and explain it away, and which a lot of people have done for the last 20 years, and that's what I think a lot of people want to continue to do with Kamala Harris is pretend these problems aren't real and that they don't exist, and going back to faking it and putting on a mask for another 4 years.
Yeah, and or just to be able to simplify all these things into little one-off situations that didn't have any great deal of choreography, and it's just
right. Well, 9/11 was nothing. I mean, January 6th was way worse.
Absolutely, and because this happened. This was a domestic thing. That's it, because it's a betrayal from countrymen. I unbelievable. One last thing, because we've gone over, but it's a short segment. I wish I had you on for an hour, but this just came together when it did. We'll do more. I also have other things with the other things I want to talk to you about with anti-gravitic technology. We'll do that in October. But
yeah,
you ever look
that's
into
the way out of all this, man? There's the secret X Tech, man. There's a lot of research that's going on, and we're breaking it all out with the Alt Propulsion Conference.
Oh, there's a conference? When's that?
Dude, we have a whole conference that we created. We've been running it. It's called altpropulsion.com. You can check it out. And we've interviewed people from NASA, DARPA, MIT, like all these top scientists to talk about warp drives, anti-gravity, ideas on alien technology and all that stuff, man. It's a happening place, and we've got like some of the best names out there in the whole UFO science scene, sharing ideas with a bigger community, and really opening up DARPA to some of these ideas of these technologies, really trying to get a team of engineers working on actually replicating and building stuff. And I don't know if you know about Charles Bueller, Dr. Charles Bueller of NASA, man, but this guy did like 20 years of classified research into the Biefeld-Brown effect and all this, old school 50s anti-gravity stuff that was, and he developed it into a lot of usable technology with real propulsion results, like propellantless propulsion results. And he declassified it all last Christmas on my podcast on the APEC conference. So, not been picked up by a lot of big news agencies. And then just last APEC conference, we had Dr. John Brandenburg on there declassify a 20-year-old study that he did for DARPA into anti-gravity, where he claims he's gotten positive results. Now
just got around. That on Brandenburg, that just got around recently, and I actually sent it to you to see if you knew anything about it. He's like, "Do I know anything about it? I helped break this?" So we have to do all this stuff. We really do.
It's gotten no attention, man. It's like we're pounding sand. I don't know, man. It's like I'm screaming into the void, you know. So I'm glad to be on this show. This is the first time I've had, a big audience watching in a while. I mean, I have 100,000. I have more subscribers than you, actually. I have 115,000 or something, and I can barely get like 200 people to watch my stream. People say they don't even get the notifications, and it's because of the material, man. You're over the target with your research, man. They don't.
Oh, I believe it. I know. For years, I always call YouTube a wasted miracle, and and it's been like 4 or 5 years now that with the time that I've been afforded, whereas so many of my other friends are already gone. I just want to be live wherever I can. I want to try encouraging them, whoever still is able to see us. Hey, come over to one place or another. Because it sucks looking at those subscription numbers and knowing that it's really just a lot of it is just fluff. It really does, and especially when you got some important things to say, which you do. So we're going to be on top of that. Next time you're on, we talked about the towers. We talked about anomalies with the Pentagon and Pennsylvania, and also Building 7. There's other things we can go to. I can ask you about directed energy weapon theories and all that, but we can do that later on. Because there's so much else that we have we should get on the schedule now. Is there anything you'd like to plug? I have your Twitter that is in the description of the episode, so people go and find you on Twitter, where I know you're very active, but anything that you got coming up that people should look out for in particular?
Yeah, I already mentioned the altpropulsion.com. That's the APEC conference, the Alternative Propulsion Engineering Conference that we host monthly, bi-monthly. And if you know any science professors that are interested in warp drive or advanced technology.
What about Bob Lazar?
Yeah, Bob's did the whole Project Gravitor, and I don't know when that's coming out. It was supposed to already come out. I think maybe October. It's coming out next month, maybe, I think. So he's got that coming up. Bob Lazar, I encouraged that guy, wrote to them, and I said, you got to get Gene Huff on, because Gene Huff was so much part of the original story. John Lear's dead now, so he's the other part of the original Bob Lazar story, so can't get him on, but you got to get Gene Huff, and because nobody's interviewed the guy in like 20-something years, and I've been talking to Gene, and I'm like, dude, you got to do an interview, and he's like, I can't do it with you because the whole, you're a skeptic of Bob, and you've really like called out a lot of stuff. So, but he agreed to go and do the whole interview with Project Gravitor, that guy Luigi there. So that's going to come out next month in October, and Bob didn't really get into the deep in the physics. We've gone so much deeper into the physics than Bob ever got if he got access to stuff. It was only a tenth of the programs that they've had.
Okay.
We've found so many other labs or other locations, organizations, and it's all documented. The 1957 anti-gravity conference at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which Richard Feynman attended. The world's top theoretical physicist at the time. I went to this conference, this super secret conference on gravity. And it's weird that it's at an obscure, college, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So they pick these weird, kind of obscure places to do a lot of this research. Sometimes it's interesting. But some of it's just at, the universities that are the top ones for, like Duke does all the top metamaterials research, or U Rochester does a lot of the top optics, research and stuff. So lots of, and then of course, Wright State, you look at the NASIC. This is the hub for Air Force intelligence right there at Wright-Patterson, right there in Dayton, Ohio. You have Battelle Memorial Institute 45 minutes away in Columbus, but everything there's right at Patterson Air Force Base, NASIC, U.S. Air Force Institute of Technology, and Wright State University, and there's loads of classified research.
The infamous Wright Patterson. I mean, that's anybody who's ever even casually taken interest in ufology and anything like that. That's like common knowledge. Oh, Wright Patterson is where the bodies went. Things like that. So whenever you do come back, just remember, it's always going to be a 101 class with me. I want to learn, but this is you deal in some pretty advanced stuff. Oh, there you have it. There you have it. But that's it. Jeremy Reese, it's great to have you on, man. I hope people go follow you on Twitter and also on YouTube, so that when you go live, there's more of a crowd congregating. And we'll do this again soon, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight. There you go.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a good night.
All right. Take care. There he goes. Jeremy Reese, the alien scientist. He's been hanging out with you guys in the chat room the entire time. We had Matt Christiansen in the beginning and Jeremy in the end. Jay Britz on Quite Frankly Super Chat says, don't worry about who pulled the trigger. The bigger question is who bought the bullet. Hello, Kitty. SKS says, hi, Frank. Hi, darling. Everyone knows 9/11 was a black flag event to usher in the Patriot Act. By the way, Aurora and I share a birthday. I'm sending her a silver coin. I'm assuming the P.O. box is good. Yes, absolutely it is. And thank you so much for that wonderful gift. The consideration. Thank you. That's really, and happy birthday to you on Saturday. Yeah, want to make Saturday, most of our family's out of town on Saturday, so me and Lauren got to do something nice and from start to finish and whatever. Sunday is when we'll get everybody together. I actually reserved a hot dog stand to come by. Know the people who own it. It's going to be hot dogs and French fries and I think soft pretzels and stuff like that. Nothing Jay Gulanello would say yes to. No, the hot dog's fine, just no bun. But we'll see. It's going to be a good time. I'll put the bouncy castle up. Brother Zoso Dude says Aurora in the T for 2 video break. Fantastic choice for September. And you and I did meet the day that she was born. I told you. That's what I thought. It's me and Lauren. We were in the room. They had just taken Aurora to the nursery. And I said, and Zoso was moving through town. And that was the night that fall arrived. Okay? The Saturday before Aurora was born, we were all hanging out in the backyard. There was a little bit of a nip in the air, just a little bit. We had the whatchamacallit going. The fire pit was going. Lauren was very pregnant, hanging out by the fire. We were playing Monopoly or something under the lights in the backyard. And that night when Zoso Dude rolled by, I said, I'm going to go outside. Do you mind? She goes, no, go ahead. Because the baby was in the nursery. We were all chilling out. Going to go outside, and I had to ask the security guard, hey, you mind if I go out for some air? I'm a new father. I've been in here for a couple of days. I just want some air. Because, of course, this is September of 2020. So to go in and out of a hospital, it's like if you leave, you're not coming back in. All COVID protocols, but the cop was cool and let me go out there. My biker friend came through town. Anyway, it was a chilly night. I remember it. I remember it well. Very excited. All right, let's see. Anything else that I missed in the Rumble rants? No, everybody's good. Great guests all around. Thank you so much. And on QuiteFrankly.tv, Sean Joe says, ask Jeremy about the great American Airlines flight that crashed at Rockaway, Queens, November 12, 2001. It crashed into houses, 265 dead. Oh, man. I barely remember that. November 12th. Well, I mean, if there's something, he might still be watching. So if there's something suspicious about that, maybe we can put that in our notes for next time he's on. Thank you guys and gals so much. Oh, here's a couple of shout outs from last night during the debate on the gold pills on quitefrankly.tv, pill.net that I missed. Delona, thank you. Doug Simmy says, thanks, Frank and Jay. Garden Girl, thank you. Delona again. Cave Toad says, thanks for the surprise stickers in the mail today, Frank. You got it, my friend. And then PJ Zwirink says, thank you for the commentary. You make this debate palatable. Well, you got it. And rounded out by Sean Joe sending a cookie. That was last night. I wanted to make sure that I thanked you all. All right, that's it. Now here, if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, Twitch, wherever the hell it is, DLive, Twitter, head over to quitefrankly.tv because in about 5 minutes, we are starting our September 11th James Corbett marathon. All right? It's going to go from 9/11 War Games into his 9/11 Trillions documentary, and then it's going to be rounded out with the big 9/11 whistleblowers. It's 4 hours of content that if you've never seen this, it's some pivotal stuff. Everybody's done a lot of good work on the subject, but these are great picks for the night. And big hat tip, of course, to James Corbett. I've always enjoyed his work, and that's going to be starting in about 3 to 5 minutes after I complete the end credits over here. So go on over to quitefrankly.tv. Let it be part of your evening routines or whatever the hell it is, and I will see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Should be a good one. Good night.
I'll catch you on the flip side.